and Trevor and Matthew can have access to that and they can see that. Unfortunately, I'm having to do this from my phone. And so I don't have a computer where I can easily see that. So Greg, if you have a question, just let them know and they can get that out there. All right, so for our first report, caretaker and roads, James Brockway.
We don't have the mic today, so if you could stand in front of everybody and near the computer, that would be great.
Actually, right here is even best. It'll pull up, like right there.
Hi, everybody.
Speak loudly.
Hi, James.
Hi, everybody. Is that better?
Yes.
So done and in progress, and I think this would be what, 3 months now, something along those lines. So obviously the Bernhard Bridge project, remaining deck boards have been placed. Did I think 100 deck boards this year out of the 134 of them. We did save deck board number 134 for some sort of special project in the park to be determined. We replaced one bridge deck stringer, which was broken. Reattached a wind brace that had worked itself loose over the years. We're using 5/8 lag bolts and dock washers to fasten the deck boards, so hopefully the long-term durability of the bridge instead of the spikes working their way loose and allowing water down on the deck boards, so it should be a much better solution. The fire shed project we've been working with and managing repairs by a contractor to save what we call the fire shed. I used to have our fire truck had major rot and water damage, primarily caused by dirt and debris being allowed to accumulate around the building.
Could you speak up a bit? I'm sorry. He said, I know, I'm sorry.
So excavation and a rock retaining wall is in progress right now. And the idea there is to get the dirt, leaves, all that kind of stuff away from the building to preserve it long term. Cedar siding is being milled on site in the park by a member, John McCutcheon, and we're making that out of trees that we felled from park property. It's kind of neat to be able to say we're being self-sufficient between members and the park. So, and it looks really cool and smells really nice when I walk outside my door as well. Plans going in the future for that building are to house the dump truck during the winter time, cleaning up the sandbox at the end of every shift, and having to uncover more sand and all that kind of stuff just makes it a lot more work than it should be, and this will make things a lot more efficient on snow plowing days, as we can heat that building and keep the sand from freezing in the box and in the sand auger box. In Division 1, we dug in and installed 200 feet of new water main line. This is to provide a full-time permanent service to lots 205, 206, 207, and 208. Excuse me, the 207, 208, that's going to happen next year, but this project allows us to extend that main line after we get some permits from Fish and Wildlife to cross a small creek slash a ditch. So we also added another fire hydrant during this project. And again, the whole idea of this, there used to be a 3/4 inch line laying on above ground going from Lookout Mountain Loop all the way up to Cascade River Road, which was super problematic for us and always had leaks in it. We had to turn it on and off for the members when they came in. So long term, this adds a permanent solution to them, where just like most of the rest of us, we can show up, turn our meter on, use our water, turn our water off, and go home. So the caretaker truck, a drivability issue, was diagnosed as a bad powertrain control module. That was caused, as I diagnosed it, by a faulty spark plug ignition wire, which that's also been repaired. Estimated cost savings of on-site repairs, I estimate that to be in the neighborhood of $800 by us being able to fix it here ourselves. We worked on roads in divisions 1 and 2, recrowning roads for water runoff and adding new gravel on top of the recrowning. We attended to multiple water loss issues caused either by mainline failure of bad bedding or issues on members' lots, one of which completely drained our tank overnight. Cost us roughly 45,000 gallons of water. We utilized the rental excavator for the last 2 months on multiple different projects. The use allowed us to be what I consider over a month ahead of schedule for our summer projects. So it's exciting that we can move on to some other stuff and be that much further ahead because of the use of that. Upcoming, more Bernhard Bridge work, installing more bolts, tightening the remaining wind braces, and securing and covering the water line. Fire shed completion should be accomplished within the next month. More water meters and completion of water projects, and continued road work as damper weather will allow. With more moisture in the roads, we can keep the rock where we intend it to be instead of it just getting blown off the roads. Any questions?
And just one quick before you do that, James, I do have a question here. I need to figure out. Okay, Frank is active on property, but not closed yet. Okay, I was just going to write to you, Frank, and just ask who you were. Sarah, we also have 3 more people online. Just so I know you have to keep track of that. We have C-Mini, Greg, Frank, and then Ron Sharon.
I think it's Christine Minnie, right?
Yeah,
and
I think so.
Christine, if that's not how you say her last name.
And I think, Amy, you need your, do you need their lot number or no? Sarah?
Say it again?
Do you need their lot number too for the attendees online or no?
No, just their name would be adequate.
Perfect, awesome. So for those of you on chat, go ahead. You can just put your name in the area because we keep this as a video minutes, but then also too, Sarah needs those for the regular minutes as well. So awesome, thank you, Christine. All right, any questions online for James? Feel free to do the raise hand feature and we can move you over.
You got nothing, James.
All right, any questions from people in the live in the audience? Sarah, are we good to go on the next one?
Okay, ready?
All right, is John Brooks there?
He is not.
Okay, so we can skip that one. All right, so next up is Office Coordinator, Sarah.
That's me. I'll sit here since everybody on there can see me, and I think you guys can hear me okay. Can you hear me, John? Can you hear me okay?
You, but not them.
Okay. We'll see what we can do about getting a louder speaker for next time. This one's as loud as we can get it, and it's not loud enough, I think. Yeah, that's new. Okay. So I'm going to sail through a couple of reports here because I've got them all together. So administration first, tasks completed. Fire extinguishers were checked and recertified. All vehicles and buildings were equipped with updated first aid kits and eye wash. The automated defibrillator machine received new batteries as is required annually and now has pads which are sized for a child, which hopefully we will never have to use. Performed the 911 phone safety check, tags for all the park vehicles. Gathered photography for archives for the websites. The office has half a dozen or so albums of memories, I guess, gathered through the park through the years. And Al and Pam Robinson have been scanning in those pictures so we can digitize them and possibly get them up on the website in the future. So thank you to Al and Pam Robinson for that work. Programmed the replacement park radios, did signage and postings for bridge closures for the Bernhard Bridge, communicated with Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group, and several members for the removal of invasive noxious plants. Thank you to Laura M. Knott for bringing that to our attention. One full set of invoices has been sent to the membership either by email or paper. If you have not received yours, please contact the office ASAP. Excuse me. There's been some confusion about the due dates. Recent invoices sent by email communicated there was a late fee, and invoices, there was no late fee on there. Didn't include that sentence. There were actually no late fees added. Invoices are due upon receipt with a deadline of September 30th. In other words, we ask you to pay them as soon as you can with a due date of September 30th. Payment plans are available. Please contact the office. Any balance not paid in full by September 30th will incur approximately a 1% per month in finance charges with or without a payment plan. I mailed welcome packets for 12 new members and completed 9 property owner transfers. Approximately 60% of dues have now been collected. The e-billing process definitely still has some bugs to work out, but Patty, our bookkeeper, and I are certainly working on that. It has definitely been a cost savings and time savings overall. Research projects were a mini excavator, park truck, HOA management, liens, portable restrooms, and lawyers. And then just kind of my usual stuff: bill paying, deposits, purchasing tracking, member communications, website posting, website copy, Facebook and communications board postings, water reports, mailings, processing lot mod applications. And I had to order new member locks. So please, to all the members, if you can't fit the garbage in the garbage bin, it's too full. Don't try to lock it because you can break the locks, and they're about $100 a piece. So let's not be buying those all the time. I'm going to move right along into the water report. In May, we pumped 390,200 gallons. In June, it was 542,800 gallons. And in July, 539,400 gallons. And as James referred to before, there were several large water incidents that they had to handle in those 2 months. And they've been tracking down various smaller leaks within our system. All of our coliform tests came back with no coliforms present, and all water testing came back in normal ranges. Like I said, several water incidents in June and July resulted in higher gallons pumped for June and July, in addition to overall higher usage in the summer months. Residents are doing a good job keeping their usage limited while the team traces possible leaks in the systems. Please continue to let the staff know of any issues. Remember to turn off the water at the meter when you leave for more than 24 hours. An update from the engineer responsible for the construction planning on the corrosion control system has postponed the start of installation until at least October. The caretakers team continues to install mainline piping where temporary lines previously supplied certain lots with water access. Darren continues to operate so efficiently in his water quality duties that he has time to devote to the major undertaking of the bridge decking project. Thank you, Darren, for all your extra time and work in June and July. I have a small little bit about delinquent accounts, and then the boring stuff will be done. Final warnings before lien went out last month. We had about a dozen of those letters. This has resulted in a majority of those members fulfilling their obligations and paying their debt in full. However, a few liens will still need to be filed. That said, many members have signed up for the payment plan since their implementation several years ago with a lot of success. So if you have any discomfort in paying your assessments, please contact the office for a payment plan. And that's all from me.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Is there any questions for the people online? I know that, like I said, there's 4 of you. Feel free to do the raise hand feature of the Q&A, and Trevor or Matthew can read those out loud.
No open questions.
All right. Are there any questions for people in the audience that are live?
Yeah, I've got a question about the radios. we'll consider replacing them. How old are they? Why do they need to be replaced?
When they break, we replace them. That's all. They're the regular two-way GMRS, FRS radios that the park has used for about a decade, I think now. They're very successful in keeping communications between the office and the caretakers throughout their work during the day. A lot of times their cell phones don't connect very well. So I'll communicate various things that they need to know about things at the gate or the tank readings when they
No, I
can't.
know why they're
Oh.
needed.
Okay.
I was just questioning why they needed to be replaced.
Oh,
Are you replacing all of them or just?
no, as they break, we replace them. I think since they were bought in the full set, I think was bought, I think Jason Davis bought them. So that's like 7 years ago-ish, maybe. So over time, they get older, they don't reach as far, they break, the batteries were down, things like that, and we replace them. They're actually not very expensive, something in the neighborhood of between $50 and $60 a piece.
And how many do we have?
Right now, I believe we have half a dozen. And those remain on also with our caretakers that are on site at all times. Good? Good. Don.
They don't make things like they used to.
I'm so sorry, Don. Hang on a second. What, Trevor?
I said they don't make things like they used to.
Right. Don Parker?
Whatever happened to the CBs they used to park? They always work so well.
Don Parker asked whatever happened to the CBs. Well, that's a pretty good question.
They're like, I know old and I'm outdated too, but, and it's probably anyway, yeah.
I don't really know the answer to that question. I know that when I came on to this position 2 years ago, the GMRS, FRS radios were what was in use. So I've continued with that since.
Yeah.
In investigating what would be a more frugal option, I found that CB radios to equip the truck and the office and then have enough bandwidth to cover the entire park would actually be a little bit prohibitive. It would require a repeater and going back to a different system of radios. So I've actually done a little bit of research into what might be good solutions for us in general.
Yeah.
And I often wonder what happened to all the members' CBs, because I'll run across the old CB handles in a list somewhere sometimes.
It's just that sometimes you can't get home on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little two-way radio and sometimes you can't get a hold of them on that either.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a bad emergency,
Sure.
it's nice to have more options. I mean,
Of
I know
course.
it's an old option, but
Totally. And there's always the option of the two-way radio that is outside the office. If you go up to my office door on the left-hand side, there's a little white box, and that has a two-way radio in it that will reach the caretaker's radios. It also has a little alarm button on the side. So if there's an emergency and you need that caretaker right away, you can push that. And a lot of times, they'll get back to you as soon as they can.
yes.
Well, they will get back to you as soon as they can.
Yeah.
But do understand that our facility does not have 24/7 coverage. With the tiny amount of staff that we have, that would be impossible. So we do our best to remain in contact when there is staff on the premises and remain available while they are there. But every once in a while, we let the caretakers leave. Not always, but
Not very often.
not very often. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
No open questions online.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. Thank you, Sarah, for that. So let's go ahead and do treasurer's report. So go ahead, Trevor.
Cool. Matthew, you able to locate and open those docs?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Which one do you want to open first?
We can probably just open all of them. We really don't need to spend much time on the P&L. And also, as always, all this stuff has been uploaded to our website, so everyone can review the budget, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and our transaction list from July. So we are in the first month of our new fiscal year. And as soon as Matthew has something to share,
I like your pretty face.
I can talk to it. I will say this, so for our profit and loss document that's there, we're showing, in this first month as we're collecting dues, that's really, the only thing to note on the P&L is I believe we have 170,000 in some change in dues and assessments that have come in the month of July. And that will continue to sprinkle in until September, and hopefully that will be all of it. So there's really nothing else on the P&L that we really need to cover, but feel free to ask questions. The next thing we can quickly go over would be the transaction list by vendor. Matthew? And on the transaction list, again, not like, a ton of really exciting things to point out. There are some larger transactions on here. Namely, there is a $2,164 charge for Bergman lock and key service. And I'm assuming, Sarah, that this was for key card order or keys?
Actually, those are the physical keys. We actually ran
physical keys. Got it. So we have, that's one of the big ones. We have an IRS tax payment that came due, and actually that can segue perfectly into the fact that we did just complete our 2016-2017 taxes, that return anyway. So we'll be moving on to the final 4 years that are left to catch up on, hopefully in the coming months, and should be able to move through that very quickly. We have bookkeeping fee on here. This is standard monthly services there. What was that, Sarah?
Could you remove the sidebar, or whoever's got the sidebar up, please? So
Ooh,
there
never
we
mind.
go.
I got it. Okay, go. Sorry.
Okay, go. Thank you.
If you keep scrolling, Matthew, I believe there's the only other large transactions on here. We have this rental SE rents. And we also had another transaction that was a large transaction for materials for the fire shed and completing that, which I know James touched on. This SE Rents LLC, Sarah, that was for the Mini X, right?
Yeah.
So that was for the mini excavator, and we have more discussion on that momentarily. If you scroll down to the bottom, Matthew, I think there's really nothing else to note here. Yeah. So that is our transaction list. If anyone has any questions on this, feel free to throw it in the chat or ask. Then we can move on to the other two documents. If you want to look at the balance sheet first, and we can end with the budget. One thing that in my newness, I believe this is on my third meeting as your treasurer. Thank you. Learning about this balance sheet and the complications with it. If anyone is looking at this and has history or experience with balance sheets, you'll notice that there is a lot of things on this that are a little disorganized and a little confusing, and some things aren't in balance. It's all due to the fact that we are still working on those final 4 years of tax returns. So there's a lot in here other than this top portion, which is showing, our current bank account amounts, which is accurate. Below that, some things have shifted around. So one thing I'll bring up at the top here, as you see, our checking account, our savings reserve, and our other reserve account for Premier Pacific is we'll be moving around some of these funds so that we have no greater than 250,000 in any given one of these accounts. And this is just an FDIC insurance thing. So we'll have to do some shifting around to some of these funds. And this is just due to, assessments coming in, and we haven't moved anything yet, but that will be coming, and you'll see that reflected in the next quarterly meeting. And if you scroll down to the bottom of this bad boy, we get into the section. Yeah, keep going. We get into our equities section. So speaking about things being out of balance, this is where we have, these equity reserve accounts is money that we have been collecting and putting aside for specific funds like the bridge, new equipment, equipment repair. And this is all kind of out of balance right now. The other thing that we need to do, and this was actually asked, I believe, at the quarterly meeting in April, was what is that line item 3,500 unappropriated retained earnings? These earnings, and we just added to that amount, is our carryover from last year. And what we have to do as a board, and we have not done, but again, it'll be reflected in the next quarterly meeting, is assign these unappropriated retained earnings to the funds above. So part of that challenge is that, like I said, some of these numbers are not accurate. Speaking with our bookkeeper on the fact that our Bernard Bridge fund right now says -100, that's not accurate, and will be reversed once tax returns are completed. So that's just kind of on us and doing some housekeeping and some organizing here. We'll also probably going to be wanting to potentially add another reserve account for things around the office that aren't here. This could include things like such as training. So we'll be discussing that in the coming weeks, and we'll keep everyone abreast of any updates that we'll be making there. But that's it for the balance sheet, and then we can jump over to the budget. And with our budget, as Matthew's pulling that up, we are only in the first month, so there's a lot of our categories and sections are just showing in the very low percentages, which is where we want them. There's just a few things on the budget I'd like to highlight and discuss what they are, and answer any questions about that. Cool.
Are you seeing the budget?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, cool. So at the top, one of the first things I'd like to point out and bring awareness to is our 501A4 water quality manager. That's our beloved Darren Lombardi. Right now we're in month 1 and we've already hit 86% on that budget. This is 100% due to the fact that, which was approved and agreed on by everyone here on the board, was a lot of work just specifically on Bernard Bridge. So there was a lot of extra hours that fell on Darren to help get that bridge done in a timely manner. And so that's why this is reflecting here. I'm only bringing it up to let everyone know that it's not going to, and it shouldn't affect our budgets moving forward. Like, we're not going to need to see more money in the 501A4 next year just because this is burning hot this year. And one thing we've all discussed was, since all of those extra hours were very specific to the Bernard Bridge project, and we have the Bernard Bridge Reserve Fund, we'll be planning on using money from that reserve fund to kind of make up for wherever we fall in the negative at the end of the year here. And I don't know if it's necessary, but I will make a motion to approve that we use funds from the Bernard Bridge to make up for that deficit that we'll see at the end of the year for 501A4.
I second that motion.
All right, so we got a motion by Trevor to, again, transfer funds from the Bernard Bridge Reserve Fund to help make up the cost for Darren's, again, work on the repairs. And it's been seconded by Matthew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. The one additional call out is that's quite a bit cheaper than if we were to contract out labor from an outside firm. So that's another part of the reason that we did that.
And I believe they were also able to open the bridge earlier as well because of that.
Absolutely. And I believe there's also that same line item and that same concern affects another line item in here. I think, Sarah, under roads and bridges, I believe, right? The rest of the budget, if you kind of scroll through it slowly, I'm trying to remember what else I wanted. Yeah, the culverts, bridges, and gates. Yes, we're already at 100% on that too. And again, that's from those same hours. Trying to think if there's anything else. It's hard when I'm not the one controlling it. I don't know if there's anything else on here that, oh, there is another thing. So that's not on the screen right now, but our two things actually. One is our expenses for the fire shed, which are showing up here. Again, those will be kind of coming out of our reserve fund, so it's not going to affect our budget moving forward. So yes, right there under 508D facilities maintenance, we have 13,000, which is 10,000 over our budget there. This was planned and we knew that it was going to be that way. But we didn't want to put that in the budget and make, assessments or dues any higher. So that will be coming out of reserve funds. And then just above that, we have the large equipment rental. That was slightly over budget for the mini excavator, just based on how the cost increased to this year from what it was previously. But we'll have, I guess we'll talk about that shortly, because the board and our caretaker team agree that we may want to make a decision on some new equipment there versus spending this amount of money regularly. So that's pretty much the highlights of all of our financials in our first month. Happy to answer any questions if people are raising their hands in the room. I don't see any questions online.
There's a question here. In
Right,
the room.
and one clarification, Trevor.
Yeah.
It's our you said 2016 to 2017, but it's actually our 2016 taxes. And I just wanted to clarify that for the record, because it's a different fiscal year, but our taxes that we just completed were 2016. And one note though, just to add on to what you said, it should be a lot easier moving forward because we have everything on QuickBooks for the 2017 tax year. So we're not having to do the forensic accounting like we had to do for 2015 and 2016.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
There's a question here. Ann Murphy.
Isn't it just as easy to keep track of Darren's hours now and separate them out to where they should be rather than wait and make an adjustment later?
Yeah.
Sarah, can you repeat the question?
She said, is it just as easy to track, or is it easier to track Darren's hours and put them to where they should be? And that's a great question. So we actually have had many conversations with our bookkeeper with how to handle that. And this is kind of the best way currently, like seeing some of those sections kind of burning hot and already at 100 or 85%. It's just because this is the budget that was approved. And so we don't want to be moving anything or changing anything that we're tracking against, because there could be legality issues in question, and it might seem shady if we're changing a budget that is live, that was approved. So, and again, we don't want those total amounts to affect coming years. So it's not that we need additional funds to, in the future to make up for those things. Does that answer your question?
No.
She says no.
If he works 20 hours on water quality and he works 20 hours on the bridge, why can't that at that time be separated as a payroll item? Then you don't have to backtrack and go figure out all these things. It's all there, like in front of you, where the money should be deducted from.
To my understanding, and we did ask that question of our bookkeeper, it's because there isn't anything to assign that to right now. There doesn't currently exist a line item for Bernard Bridge within the budget. There, I think, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there used to be a 506C that was Bernard Bridge specifically.
Well, think that what she's saying is, why couldn't it go into the assistant or the backup caretaker? Is that what you mean? The backup caretaker category at this point in time, which is, I don't have that in front of me. Anyway, and the answer to my question is that there were more hours for Darren because of a staffing issue that John had to be on light duty for a little while. And so they utilized Darren for a little bit more. The reality is, for the rest of the year, we still have to cover, or Darren, it is his job to cover the caretaker's vacation, sick time, and to help when there is snow events coming up in the wintertime. So we're anticipating that the entirety of the $6,500 in 50018, the standby caretaker, will be utilized from now through June of next year. So it doesn't make sense to take from that category now, knowing it's going to be used anyway. So in attributing it to the bridge, which is where the funds could logically come from, according to the bookkeeper, it made more sense to attribute it that way presently. It may be just a stylistic difference. I'm not really sure, Anne, but it's how she advised us to go about it.
As long as one is keeping proper track.
Right, and it'll be itemized. His hours that he worked on the bridge will be differentiated from his other hours, so that when we say he was working on the bridge, that's exactly what he was doing. It's just the bridge, so that it's fitting into a legal category that we can draw from. Sure. Don?
In the vote just taken by the board, I didn't hear a specified amount that was to be transferred between those two accounts, or what the balances would be after the transfers.
Yes, you're correct. I don't have that exact amount, and I don't know that we'll know what it is until we're at the end of the year. I mean, there's not going to be any more hours that go into what he works. So I suppose we could calculate that, Sarah.
We can and we will. The point I think Don's trying to make is that when the board decides to make the transfer, it'll be a specified dollar amount from one to the other, and that the board can then say yay or nay. You know, it's $100 transferred from account A to
10,000.
from account A to account B, but it has to be a specified amount in the minutes and at an official board meeting.
Because otherwise you've taken an open-ended vote without any amount attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't make sense to me as a member.
Got it.
If
That
you
makes
want
sense.
to
So
vote-
we can define that number, and then we can make another
balance
motion.
now, to balance things out, then that should be the amount we transfer now. We need to transfer other amounts later, then that should be the amount of the vote taken later. But we can't just have the board voting to transfer an unknown amount of money between accounts.
We know what the money is for.
Well, we know what it's for, but we don't know the
And
amount.
we know what we've spent, and we know where we're getting it from, and we know the intention of moving this pile to that pile. That number isn't resolved yet because our bookkeeper still has to inform us. When she does, we will have that specific number and we can publish that.
But I would say that this vote was premature. Because the board should not be voting to transfer funds without having a specific amount that they are voting on. Otherwise, it's an uninformed vote.
So what I'm hearing to say, and I believe it was Don, so we are just doing the recommendation, but we have to do the transfer when that actually does with the exact amount. So we just did the recommendation. Trevor made a recommendation. We all are in support of the recommendation. We're being very transparent that we're going to have to do that transfer later, but we don't have the amounts. So we're going to have to do, when we do the actual transfer, that's going to be at an open meeting, but we also wanted to be very transparent, saying this is what's happening. So
But
again,
without that, you're not being transparent. I'm sorry.
You can see the amount.
yeah, we will.
About $2,500.
Yeah.
And we have a specific amount. We will let you know in an open meeting when they decide to do the transfer.
So did they transfer $2,500?
We just said,
We did a recommendation, but we haven't done a transfer yet, and we can't do the transfer until we get some of the other situations with the taxes taken care of.
I guess that'll do for now.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions, Sarah?
nothing?
All right. So just as a reminder, we as a board, I mean, except for Amy, I think Amy's been there for 3 years. The rest of us have been less than, well, I've been a year now. So we inherited this mess with the taxes, and so we've been working diligently. But as Trevor noted, it has a cascading effect, and we're working on that. The hard part is with Bev, our bookkeeper, our forensic accountant, is that COVID has really delayed her. And also with the tax deadline changed to May instead of April. And then I think it was June or July the year before that. She is really, really struggling. Just in all transparency with the board too, we did look at trying to find a different account to see if we could speed up the process. But unfortunately, every accountant right now that we've been able to pursue has been basically very, very far behind because of COVID and the increased workload. So we are working as fast as we can. We did 2 years of taxes in 1 year, so that's a huge improvement. And I believe those were just sent to my house to be signed. Unfortunately, I'm out of the country right now, but when I get back, I will sign those and submit those to the IRS. And I know that our bookkeeper is going to be paying the 2016 amount due as well. All right, I believe, can you go back to the agenda?
Yep, stand by.
You're adorable.
I believe our next report is, Sarah, is it the nominating? I'm trying to do it off the top of my head. Or Amy, sorry, Amy with beautification.
Water chair, actually.
No, she already did water chair.
Comms and
Yeah,
beauty.
so we have communications and beautification.
Let's see. I didn't write this down, so I'm going to do my best to do it off the top of my head. In communications, as far as I can recall, mostly we've been working on improving our message boards and our facility with this technology, which still leaves something to be desired, but we're working on it. Every 3 months is often enough. Can you add anything to communications for me? Work very closely with Sarah at this point because it's a good idea to have someone available to lend a hand if possible, and I've volunteered my time, and so I get an insider's view of the mayhem that goes on in the office, and that's all about communication. You don't want to know. Okay, so I'm just gonna move right past that and say we have new signage in the park and are about to get another new sign. It's being worked on as we speak by a volunteer member. It will be the sign that says office, welcome, Cascade River Park, caretaker's names, the street address that sits at the front of the triangle below the office. That may not seem like much, but it is the entrance to the park, and any beautification along that direction will make the park even more welcoming than it already is. And that leads into beautification, and that triangle is also being addressed by 3 or 4 volunteers in the park who will wait till September and the sun goes down a little and do some yard work basically. And then next year, in the next year's beautification budget, some plantings will be done, some gravel work will be done, some paths will be made in there, and that will be made attractive so that the front of the park is finally revitalized, basically, similar to what it was in the past. And the first message board, the top message board by the gate, the wind. We were there, we saw it happen, ripped the plastic door off, and threw it away. So there's an unbeatable, adversary. We're going to get something stronger and put it up there to secure the paperwork. That's sort of beautification and communications. In the park, I've had help from a number of volunteers. Let's see, Bobby Dutton and Kim Frazier, and Greg Smith and his wife have all helped with watering and with planting and with maintaining these large flower pots that I've planted. Some garden-scape work has been done by a waterfall on the high road, and there'll be another bit like that done at the bottom of that waterfall on the low road next year. So I think I'm very happy since I started beautification almost 3 years ago. Things are moving along. And I hope that you all find the little bit that's being done satisfactory.
I say that you put those plant little garden things you made there throughout the park look really nice. It's like a lot better than those hanging baskets. And hanging baskets are nice, but those seem to me look like I don't think a lot nicer.
I can address that. I can address that. Especially in July and August, even here, if we didn't count this year, it's good weather. The baskets are simply too small. The air itself is hot and dry, and it just evaporates the baskets and fills off the plants. It does appear that these pots are able to withstand that. I do have to go water sometimes twice a day, but that's cool. It's all right. I can use a stand pipe, and it provides beauty to each little neighborhood area. So I think it's working. It's in progress, and that's actually all I have to say about that. The message board in Division 3 will get a new coat of paint. It will get refreshed signage, and that will happen in September. So that communication beautification thing can mesh in that spot as well. That's it. Thank you.
All right, and Amy, you also have a buildings and grounds chair for lot cleanup letters.
Right. So this year, this last 6 or 8 weeks, my team has been working on assessing which lots may need to get onto the lot cleanup list, which I'm just going to state right out at the front. It was a practice to post that list for everyone to peruse, and this board has determined that that's a bit rude by putting people on the spot in that way. So that list isn't going to go up with people's names or lots or whatever that is on there, but the list no longer, does still exist and is being addressed, and letters have been sent out. So progress in the sense of following the proper steps and procedures is happening. The steps have been taken, the letters have been sent, and work is being done.
Awesome.
Yes?
All right, thank you so much. Any questions for Amy on her 3 reports, buildings and grounds, beautification, and also communications?
Yes.
Sarah?
From Ken Joe.
Yeah, lot 190. I don't want to be rude to the people that have lots that look like Greg does, but I don't think enoug's been done or being done to address those things, and I don't think there's much progress being shown. You can't really, since you don't publish a list, we don't know who's being addressed. But
what would you do if you knew?
If my name was on there, I would
No. I mean, what would you do if you knew who was on the cleanup list?
I would just know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to go up and address it. That's you guys' job.
Sure.
But how do you know who's on that list? How do you know whose lots are,
So,
have cars overgrown with factories and stuff like that?
I mean, the members are definitely open to file complaints, right, Sarah? If there are specific lots that you have in mind that you're wondering if they're on the list, I'm sure that could be a discussion, right?
so, yes, there is a process. If a member wishes to complain about another member, they have every freedom to do that in writing and submit it to the office, which will go to the board, which will be noted as a complaint. Absolutely, you have much better that than you take, a rake or a bat and you go bang on a door. That was not preferred.
No.
Okay,
It's in,
and so.
Strike that from the minutes. I'm just kidding.
So those who others might consider as an offense, I can certainly tell you, I too can see who they are, where they are, and I have taken it into my own hands to do what we consider the right proper way. And that has a number of steps to it. So yes, in some cases, there may be not enough quote movement or change or address done by that lot owner to whatever their problem is. But there's still steps being followed by the board in response either to the lackadaisical efforts or to the good efforts that are making a noticeable change. So there's a timeline for all of that. And we are pursuing the timeline exactly as we were supposed to. And after that, it might get gnarly, but thank God we're not there yet. So you wait with me,
Yep.
and we'll see how it goes. And then I'll get back to you on that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Sarah?
No,
All right, and is Kim Fraser present?
she is not.
Okay, so we do not have a Firewise report. Okay. All right, and then we do have our voting chair, Lynn, has a motion to destroy the paper ballots from the annual meeting. I know this is a set process, Sarah, but any other background here that we need to know about?
No, it's just practice to have those paper ballots destroyed, and a motion to do so must be made at a formal board meeting.
And we still have electronic votes as well recorded. So we have her report and then also the paper and also the electronic copy still.
And the electronic ballots, just so everybody is aware, I cannot see the results. Nobody can see the results. We only know that you voted and the result of the vote, the overall vote. So those votes are anonymized to some extent.
Yeah, and it actually saves the park a significant amount of money instead of mailing ballots each year. All right, so we have a mission. I know that Lynn made the motion, but we have to make the motion, right?
Yes, you have to make the motion.
All right, is there a motion to destroy the paper ballots from the annual meeting?
I'll make a motion to destroy the ballots from the annual meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I second.
All right, well, Matthew, Amy beat you. So we have a motion by Trevor and seconded by Amy to destroy the paper ballots from the annual meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right,
Aye.
MC. Okay,
Aye.
perfect. All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you for again doing that, and thank you for those of you also that are doing electronic voting to save the park money. So, which leads us to our new business. So as it came up in our reports, we do have a couple of situations that we intentionally were looking into. As you know, that we did reduce dues and assessments. Well, sorry, we did not reduce dues. We reduced assessments this year. We were able to reduce that slightly. And then with the intention of trying to use the money from the lot sales to help again with some of these costs that we knew that we're having. And so I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to explain why or what we plan on doing with some of those funds that we have in those reserve accounts.
Yeah, I mean, I think really simply that will be of our account fund 3,500 unappropriated retained earnings. Those need to be assigned to said reserve funds, like I mentioned earlier. Those funds will be assigned to things like new equipment and replacement equipment funds. And the reason being, we are years overdue on a new park truck. I think James maybe was touching on that a little bit earlier, and he could certainly share more about how far behind we are on that. I know he's been waiting. So we're looking into doing the research on that. We don't have exact amounts yet. And then the second item here, the mini excavator. So I kind of gave you a little teaser before, but instead of spending, upwards of 8K and going up to rent the mini excavator, we as a board have decided that it would definitely be in the best interest to just purchase one. So this will be coming out of our new equipment funds, the mini excavator, which again, I know James could speak really well to all of the additional benefits that it'll have. I know that it is from a high level going to make the caretaker team's jobs much more efficient. There will be certain jobs that they can do a lot faster. It will save the life and maintenance on the backhoe. So it's really, financially, it's wise decision. And it's also going to add more capabilities of things they can do. I know James discussed certain brush clearing things we'll be able to do that we can't currently do. Sorry for the vagueness. But it's going to be awesome is what I'm trying to say. And then with the fire shed, I believe I already touched on this on the budget sheet, but those will also be coming out of reserve funds. So really, with all of this new business, what we're getting at is that this is coming out of the unappropriated 3,500 account. So it's not going to be affecting any budget increases, and it's nothing for any members to be worried about in this additional spending. So that is our plan for new business. Do we have questions on any of those?
Don Parker has a question.
Why are we getting a new park truck? Not that old.
The truck was supposed to replace the park truck was supposed to replace the
So the reason for the replacement of the park truck is that Don Parker was asking why it is the truck that we have doesn't seem that old. Something that's incumbent upon the board to have done periodically is a reserve study. And the reserve study tells us exactly how long it is we're supposed to keep a piece of equipment in before we replace it, before the cost of keeping that item outweighs the cost of buying a new one. And we are, let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, we're now 4 years overdue, according to that reserve study, to buy a new truck. So that's where we're getting this from. Now, those 4 years were bought by the fact that we happen to have a master mechanic on staff, and he's been helping that truck along. So go ahead.
So I take it, you kind of weigh what it costs to get a new one to, how much you keep putting money into it. That bad, huh?
It gets there after a while. I mean, you know how they use the truck is it's, 15 miles an hour or less, and it's stop and start, stop and start. These are not good things for a vehicle in general. And then they use it for heavy duty, equipment, and they take their tools around. And it as a vehicle goes, it gets really abused, according to our master mechanic.
There's also a tax situation as well, because we can depreciate the new asset, which goes against our annual tax payments.
Right, there's financial ramifications of the depreciation of the value of the truck. If first it's the 50% when you roll it off the lot, it continues to depreciate. And so once it depreciates, according to our reserve study, to a zero balance, it's time to re-up and get a new truck because this one just isn't worth maintaining anymore. Kind of like why I sold it.
The other, and Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah, the other decision we had too, this goes back to the Mini X as well, is thinking about how much staff time is involved in fixing the truck and how much extra staff time is doing work with a backhoe versus a Mini X. And knowing that our staff is, again, a very important asset to our park, and looking at how we need our time. We know that for us, we'd rather have our staff working on things like the water system upgrades, the new bridge railings and things like that, because the time that our staff works on the truck is taking away time from work that they should be doing something else.
I should probably clarify too, Warner, that it's going to need brakes all the way around. It's going to need front end work. It's going to need major tune-up work, major services. Close to 86,000 miles on right now. So beating around on dirt roads. So it's actually amazing that it's lasted this long. I don't normally buy Ford trucks, but I was seriously considering going to go through one of those trucks. Very impressive.
I'm just used to, I'm not used to work trucks. I just drive a car and just a little pickup. So when it comes to that, I got it. Okay.
Don Skecki also has a question, and then Ron Sharon.
With a mind to depreciation, is it customary to buy a brand new full price truck? Or is there any value to buying a truck that's a year or two older that has already been depreciated substantially at a much lower cost of the membership, but still has a lot of life left in it? And a lot of
That's a great question. And I know that Sarah and James have been looking into stuff. So you guys can speak more to it, but I don't believe, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but it's not our intention to go, buy a brand new truck that costs way too much money. We're being very fiscally responsible with what we're looking at. But that's kind of why we're bringing it up, as just, letting you know we're doing the research on what that's actually going to cost. So that will be shared in the future as well.
And again, this is made possible because Sarah's been excellent in getting and with having our real estate agent with those lot sales. And so, like I said before, we were able to reduce our assessments this year, but then also be able to subsidize some of our delayed maintenance with the cost of those lot sales. So when you're saying cost of the membership, again, we really try to make sure these projects would be a net zero towards the membership, just because, again, we lowered assessments this year, and we were very intentional about making sure that we use that money from the lot sales wisely with some of our delayed maintenance. And Ron has a question.
Yeah.
Do you need me to move him to talk, or can you do that, Trevor?
I
got it. I can do it.
Okay. Oh, here, I got it. All right.
Okay, awesome.
Ron, you should be able to talk.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're having a hard time hearing anybody in the background. The three of you that are that are talking most is fine, but anybody in the background is just
Online, you can't hear.
online or wherever they're at. There's no video on them, but there's the volume and is real low or scratchy.
We'll try to do a better job at repeating the questions that they're asking. Sorry about that, Ron.
And Ron too, when I get back in the country, I upload this and put it on YouTube as well on our park YouTube channel. So this recording will also be online, and you should be able to hear them a little bit better as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your grace too. We're learning how all this new technology works and trying to increase participation. So I know that we are going to get a better microphone, and that will surely help in the future.
Yeah, well, you guys are coming in real great. It's very clear. It's just the people in the background. Well, you're doing a great job, and thanks for all your volunteering. So Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Ron, adjust your ears, that's all.
Okay.
And then Trevor, you'll need to put him back in the audience
Okay.
as an attendee. All right. I believe, and just correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew or anyone else too. We're just doing this. We're not making a vote or anything like this. This is just information. Hey, we're looking into these things and trying to be doing cost saving measures and how to be fiscally manageable with what we have. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Awesome. All right. So I believe we hit all of new business A. This is really cool. This came up as a question on email that I received and I forwarded it to Sarah. But we had a board member when we had the bridge closure ask for portable restrooms in Division 3. And so this has been, again, when you email the board, those messages go to, again, us online at Cascade River Park, our Gmail account, and then we'll send those answers out. And so really cool that this was actually initiated by a member, and we looked at adding those as well. So thank you for that. And again, if you have feedback or suggestions, we will gladly take that. So we cannot take credit for the bathroom. Sarah, who was that? Whose idea was that again?
That was new member Alex Wennerberg. His mother actually emailed us. Her name is Roxanne, and I think that the portable restrooms have been well received by everybody.
Yeah, so great, and thank you for that, because again, those are great suggestions and feedback. And you know, we're all volunteers, and we all have jobs, and some of us have multiple jobs, and so again, multiple brains are better than one. So. All right, looks at other new issues. Again, burn ban. Because these are just reminders at the current state. Again, we have approved fire rings and grills. We have been getting some concerns about the propane fire rings and the height of the flame. I know that Sarah and I have received probably about 3 or 4 concerns. I think Trevor's received a couple as well. And so just make sure, again, for those of you that have approved propane fire rings, there's still rules and guidelines on how tall those flames can be. And so please just make sure you're respectful of that. And again, you know, as you know, with the fire danger being extremely high and the drought-like conditions, you know, there's personal liability if you are using a piece of equipment like a propane ring for not its intended use or not following the directions. And so just be cautious. The last thing we want to do is jeopardize our little oasis here. Also too, I believe Sarah and I have received a handful of complaints about quiet hours as well. Again, and just be respectful of members with 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. We will definitely can hear those complaints. The hard part with that one is, again, is we don't have a park police. And so that's something that is asking a lot of our caretakers to, you know, go in the middle of the night to enforce those rules. But please, again, just be respectful for quiet hours, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. If things are like too wild and crazy and you're seeing like property damage, things like that, definitely you can feel free to contact the caretakers with the radio or phone that we have outside. But again, please just understand too, we do not have the staffing right now to have a 24/7 response time. And also just a reminder too, when guests come, we have the guests sign in when you first come in. And so just please be respectful of that. And if you have people using your property, just again, remind them they need to do that as well. Sarah, any other things I need to cover on the new issues?
I don't think so.
All right. So our last new business, and this is something that Matthew brought up at the annual meeting, is we actually have an amazing volunteer who is helping us with our policies and reviewing them. And this has been quite a process. I believe Kurt initiated a lot of this stuff several years ago. But we're finding a lot of our policies are severely outdated. They have issues like, again, mandating types of equipment or things like that. Also too, a big thing that we did at this one, so we will be having a special meeting at some point, and we'll be sending that information out soon for some like significant policy like revisions, things like that need to be updated to 2021. Some policies haven't been updated since like the late 90s. But this one is pretty easy to go through. And Sarah, do you easily have the titles of these available, or I know you and Amy probably have them memorized, but they're the ones that are involved in. What's that?
I don't have them. I'm not at my computer, so.
Okay, Matthew, I can try to do it, but unfortunately I am, I'm doing this meeting from the East Coast in the island in the Caribbean right now. So I don't have it, but I know the policies. Let me pull it up on the emails then. So all of our policies in the 1300s involved, again, how we staff relations and staff job responsibilities and roles. And one of the things we're finding is that there's a whole bunch of policies that really shouldn't be policies, but more standing operating procedures. And a couple of these policies were actually technically just job descriptions. They weren't actually a policy that should be a board policy. And so one of the things that we have intentionally been trying to do is to clean these up and to see what should actually be a policy, and then what should be actually a standing operating procedure. And so I will, essentially our motion is going to be to basically remove all 1,300 policies and basically make them the 1,300 level that are basically those revolving staff, and make those standing operating procedures. But I know that people are going to want those. And so these are going to be policies. And Trevor, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you have more of it. 1312 and 1312.1.
I'll try to look them up real quick for you, Jeff.
1330, which is policy contract relief caretaker. We have policy. And I do apologize. Like I said, I'm not on my computer as well.
I can read you a list of the ones we looked through.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. Since like I said, I'm trying to do this from my phone from the Caribbean.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is everyone, but some of the ones that we just recently reviewed, policy 1312, caretaker job description, policy 1330, relief caretaker contract, policy 1332, relief job description, policy 1340, bookkeeper position job requirements, policy 1341, contract bookkeeper, policy 1342, bookkeeper statement of work, policy 1345, contract delinquent accounts administrator, policy 1360, bus research consultant job description, and that's obviously business research, not bus research. Policy 1370, WQO duties, policy 1380, incidental paid labor. And I believe that's all the ones, Jeff, that you and I took a quick look at. I don't know if there are others. Yeah.
And Matthew, do you want to explain why? Because I know you did this at the annual meeting, but just again, as a reminder, why we're making this transition from what should be a policy and what should be a standing operating procedure.
Yeah, so just to review with everybody, a policy is something that we need to enforce among the membership, and it should be something that keeps the park, protects the park and the whereas some of these things around like job descriptions and what are basically either procedures or processes or just descriptions of how the park operates, having them documented is important, and so we're going to continue to have them documented. But when they're in policy, it makes them very difficult to update. And as Jeff mentioned, some of these haven't been updated in as many as 30 years, and so they need to be updated to reflect the current jobs of the various park staff and the current way that we're actually doing things. And if they're restricted into policy, then we can't make those updates as needed, and really they need to have some flexibility to them because the way the park operates is changing, and we're trying to make sure our processes, our procedures and everything reflects what's actually happening and what needs to happen to make sure that we keep operating smoothly.
And then I have to open this up to Sarah and I'm sorry, I don't know the recording secretary. Do we need to go through every single policy individually, or is it something we can do? I know in my other board, we can do a consent agenda, and we can just include all policies as part of a consent agenda and vote on them at once. What is the best way for us to document this?
I would just say the 1300 section.
All right, for the board, is there any objection of doing that as a consent agenda item? And we have all of the 1300 section of the policies included in that for that?
No objection.
All right, I'm not saying, I do want to open up for the discussion on questions of membership before we vote. Any questions from online?
No raised hands online.
Okay, Sarah, any questions in person?
Yes, Ann and then Don. Ann Murphy?
Okay, Ann?
On Tuesday, I saw a woman driving through the park. She stopped at 2 members' places, walked around. I couldn't figure out what she was doing. I finally, because I considered that trespass. So I went to talk to her. She said she was Sherry and didn't I meet her at the picnic grounds? And I said, no, I did not. So I said, do you have a card? No, she did not. She has nothing on her card that says she's a realtor. To me, it's trespass when she just goes on people's property. Totally wrong, I felt.
So she was invited by the owner of that particular property to go on and assess it for sale. Her name escapes me at the moment. Joyce, that's right. She actually called me earlier this week to look for a name of a realtor. Sherry has sold 15 properties on behalf of the park and an additional 15 to 20 properties on behalf of private members around the park. And her car is actually brand new, but oh yeah, he's just repeating it. She had permission to be there, but I'm sorry that she alarmed you.
I did call Joyce Harris, and she said she heard maybe somebody would stop by, but she had no idea when or who. So,
well, she would have had to have contacted Sherry first.
Some lack of communication here that I didn't recognize Sherry. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't go to her gathering. I don't know, but I didn't know.
Sure.
Can we also finish the current conversation before we go?
Yeah, because we need to, the questions are intended to be about the board policy changes that we're going to vote on, but I did want to open it up for members for any questions. So is there another question related to this topic?
Don has a question about this.
Okay.
At the annual meeting, you would ask for volunteers to review these policies, and I volunteered. And I was told that as that progressed, I would be contacted to participate. It now seems that the board has taken this on as a project of their own without any exterior members' involvement. Is that what's happened in the meantime? Because
no, Don, like I said, all these come to us. We have a volunteer who is doing this, and that is something that we can definitely rope you into. I've actually wrote on Facebook a couple times asking people to help. I didn't have your information, but unfortunately,
John, that's my fault because I've been very busy and kind of uninvolved, and this is going to continue to be ongoing because there's still a lot to go through. So I know Amy and Amy's led a lot of the charge. So, but yeah, Don, I'm sure we get you involved moving forward. There's lots of work to do. So
there was no problem contacting me about the bill that was due.
Well, yes, that's because I'm a paid employee and I'm paid to do that. Okay. We will be contacting you on behalf of this particular project, but it's inappropriate for the members to be involved in employee contracts. And so that's really the part that they have been focusing on, is the parts that can't be really managed by the membership. However, there is a wealth of more policies, not just policies, the bylaws, the articles of incorporation, every single aspect of this park needs to be gone through at this point in time, because there are inappropriate ways that this park has been managed since the 80s. This is
Or the
a
60s,
wealth.
right.
No, not actually since the 60s. For about 25 years, it was done perfectly. And then something happened, and I don't know what that was. I think it was many cooks in the kitchen, all doing their pieces and parts and all fitting together really, really well. And they did a great job. But we don't have 50 people volunteering for this job anymore. We have maybe 5. And then we have the board, who has a huge encumbrance of work upon them, as it is their directive to guide the daily work of this park. That is what they are charged to do. And the assistance that they receive is often hard to come by and disorganized in a bit of a way. They need people who are strong and who can lead a committee and produce cooperative efforts to bring our park into a century that is present. There's a wealth of work to do, and volunteers will be necessary. Our volunteer coordinator, unfortunately, has stepped down. So we're left with a little bit of a hole, and it's very difficult to organize without enough people to organize it and with too many people to organize it. So I don't have a really satisfactory answer for you, other than there's lots of work ahead of us. This is a very small portion of a very long policy list.
Sure.
And I would add that these 1300s, as she said, I'll just restate, have to do with employees and their contracts. So it would be inappropriate for members to be involved in that financial aspect. But there are a zillion other policies and things that need to be changed into SOPs that it would be welcome anybody who would love to cooperatively work together to achieve harmony and success at modifying those policies.
Well, I was just surprised that volunteers were at the board and that I haven't been contacted, even to say that we know that you're there. At this time, we're not quite ready for you.
I'll send that message right along. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And just as a reference too, again, in my other role as elected office for a place down in Oregon, you shouldn't have job descriptions written as policies because you can't change them. And again, we know that the jobs change over time. And like a perfect example of this is the relief caretaker. That policy is, I believe, 10 or 11 pages in single space Courier font. And again, that shouldn't have been a policy. A job description is a great thing to have. But again, if something were to change, then we would be violating policy. And so that's why we try to do these en masse. And I think that too, when things come up, and I believe that's Dawn, feel free, you can always email me, Jeff Crapper, as well. It's pretty easy to find me, but also you could do president@Cascade River Park. And that comes to me if you ever want help. And we have stuff in line, and I can forward those suggestions to you and those policies as well for the next special meeting we have planned.
Okay. There's a difference between reviewing policies and changing policies. I understand what you've explained to me about the confidentiality of contracts. And I hope you understand my point about the broader view of the language in the policy overall as compared to the individual contracts.
Yeah, so again, we shouldn't have contracts as a policy. I mean, that's not proper. That's not how an HOA works. And that's not how, again, in any organization, you shouldn't have a job description as a policy. So these are all job descriptions or contracts. And so like my teaching contract is not a school board policy, nor in my role as a school board member, do we have job descriptions in any of that as well. So that's just, again, understanding these should have never been policies in the first place, but definitely, again, working with you in the future, I'll gladly work with you on this project.
let me know.
Feel free to email me too, so I have your email address, or and that way I can again work with you on this process. So I will gladly take your feedback and let you know what policies. Part of it also is, just as a heads up, is that we are having to change some of our terminology as well, and so those are things that we have to be conscious of in our policies too, especially thinking about modernification with pronouns, things like that. So those are things we have to be more conscious of too, when we're doing some of these things. All right. So we have a motion, or I need a motion to, again, for a consent agenda item for, again, new business D. Policies all being reviewed and posted to the website of the Pro, policies in 1300 section of the policy book. I get a motion to go ahead and again, remove these as policies and include them as standing operating procedures for Cascade River Park.
I second that motion, Jeff.
Oh no, I need you to do a motion.
I create a motion, in fact.
Okay. I have a motion from Trevor.
Second.
All right, second by Matthew. So I have a motion by Trevor, second by Matthew. Again, as basically a consent agenda to go ahead and remove all of the 1300 section of the policy book and to make them standing operating procedures instead of policies. Again, motion was by Trevor, second by Matthew. All in favor, say aye.
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 Question.
MC, are you there?
Aye. Yeah, sorry about that.
and
Yeah, aye.
No problem. And I heard Amy say aye as well. So that motion passes 5-0. All right. So this is our last agenda item. Again, member comments. And so again, any questions or comments from people online?
Sarah, yeah.
Granted, we just voted, but I would like to know, as they have been removed entirely, do you intend to put something back? In other words, that says, that somehow refers to that entire parcel's contents as a legitimate concern. Let's just put it like that. You take it out and you don't mention it at all, and you make contracts, employee contracts into SOPs. Where's the part where it says, and we, the boards, all the boards throughout time will justly, act in regards to contracts for employees?
Well, Amy, that's just with any kind of, our employees are all at-will employees. Washington is an at-will employee state. And so if there are issues that come up, we can definitely deal with those as a board. But again, we can't have job descriptions or contracts as a board policy. It's not how an organization works.
I understood that part. That's not what I was asking. I understood that part. It's fine. I'll ask it another time. Thank you.
No, okay. So I think, are you talking about referencing them in policies somewhere?
Yeah, yes, I'm talking about referencing it, yes.
Yeah, we can't reference it. It's not meant to be a policy. It should never have been a policy in the first place.
So you don't have a policy about employees in any way, shape, or form, is what you're
Correct.
saying?
Correct. Employee stuff has to be dealt with the board, and the board is technically their supervisor. So the board is going to be, as Matthew said, the board is the one who deals with the employees, not the membership.
Okay.
So the policies are for, again, relationship for member to member or operation of the park, but technically the board is the employee, or the board is the supervisors of the employees.
Thank you for stating that very clearly. I appreciate that.
All right. Any other questions from the membership present?
Not here.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. Trevor, can you tell me what time it is?
It is 7:32 p.m.
7:32.
Pacific
All
Standard.
right, thank you, because it's 10:32 my time right now. So I wanted to have it on the record as the right time. So, all right, I have, barring anything else, a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:32 p.m. Any objections? All right, Sarah, do we have to have a motion for that, or is that good as is?
No, you have to motion.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I am making a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Well, I'll make a motion
I
to
second.
second it.
All right, it was seconded by, motion to adjourn the meeting was by, okay. Motion was made by Trevor, seconded by Amy, and thirded by Matthew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. MC?
I don't believe we have MC. It looks like she dropped.
All right, so that motion passes 4-0 as well. So thank you so much for, again, your participation online, and then also again in person. I will upload this video probably in the next few days. And again, feel free to reach out anytime you have questions or concerns.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.